Hi there. Welcome to Discussions with the Fascia Masters. My name is Deanna Hansen. I'm the founder of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy, and I have two very special guests with me today, Kaytee Hadley and Penny Wood. I met the two of them on the Pet and Parent Longevity Conference when Dr. Marlene Siegel and I were sharing our information about our new pet program. And when I met them, these two women just have so much beautiful information to share and offer the world, both for the pet parent as well as for the pet, and have a lot of really, really fun and exciting opportunities to explore further into these realms coming on up. So welcome, both of you. I would love it if each of you could individually introduce yourself and share what brought you to this amazing world of fascia and helping people heal.
Well, thank you so much, Deanna, for the introduction. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the last 6 months or so. And I know I speak for both of us when I say that we're both thrilled to be here. I'll start with a quick introduction. I'm Kaytee. I am on the parent side of the pet parent equation. So I'm a functional medicine dietitian and longevity health coach. So my specialty is really looking at how can we use lifestyle and natural modalities to restore balance to the body by addressing why it was out of balance to begin with, and not only extend our lifespan, but extend the number of healthy years that we have. Penny, go ahead. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what our mission is and what drives us is the same. In some ways, we're nearly the same person. But of course, on the other side of the coin, the other half of Pet and Parent Longevity, bringing in the animal side. So I'm a cognitive ethologist and longevity zoologist. So my specialty is enhancing the quality and quantity of life that our animals have. So obviously in the pet realm, that's being able to keep your fur babies with you for longer than you think, because nobody wants to say goodbye. Excuse me. And so I'm bringing in a combination of functional and regenerative medicine. So like Kaytee, getting to that root cause of what's actually driving the aging process, what's causing a cellular decline, what's making some of these symptoms and diseases start to come up, and catching them before they come. So a lot of my work is preventative. And then on the flip side, regenerative medicine. So if aging and some of these factors have started to take effect, how can we use the body's own DNA, immune system programming and amazing compounds to actually wind that clock back?
Wow, that's fascinating. So what brought the two of you together to tie in parents and pets? Because I mean, I'm now in this world and I just absolutely have fallen in love with the pet work. But how did you meet and how did you come together? Because I know you both live in different countries.
We do. We actually met online in a business networking environment. And it was one of those sort of, your eyes catch across a crowded rooms moment. As it was almost like that powerful. It was like we only had a couple of minutes to chat and share stories, but you know it when you feel it. And there was a connection there. It was like, oh my gosh, you do the same thing I do, but you do it with people with 4 legs, or you do it with people with 2 legs. And I was like, wow, we should continue this conversation. And so go ahead, Kaytee, I'll let you do the other half.
I mean, that's truly what happened. And we had set out to, so we started this conversation about, so I have 3 fur babies, and I had just adopted a puppy, and she was having so many health problems that, I mean, we literally, thank goodness we lived next door to the vet, because we were there every other day. Like, it was so bad and no one could really help us. And so I was like, Penny, oh my gosh, amazing. Like, I need to pick your brain. And so she gave me some simple strategies that literally overnight, for the first 6 months of my dog's life, she had chronic gut issues, just so many. And within 2 days, she was like a new baby. Like, it was just so amazing. And then Penny helped introduce me to some regenerative strategies for my senior dog. And so it was so profound. And I had this light bulb moment where Penny and I are talking about these strategies. And I'm like, wait a second. You're talking about herbs that I used for humans to soothe the gut. You're talking about a species appropriate diet for my dog instead of kibble. Well, that makes sense, because I'm a nutritionist. So I'm always talking about eating whole, real foods for humans. Well, dogs, I guess, don't live in the wild eating kibble. So what is it that they eat? So it's like all these light bulbs going up of like, oh, so literally everything that I'm doing on the human side can be translated on the pet side. And so as we got talking, we just said like, man, we have to share this information with people because there's got to be people on both sides. There's got to be other folks like me who know this in and out. I mean, you can be a practitioner in this field for humans and not realize that the same principles apply to your pets and vice versa. There's got to be people who are investing in their pets and their fur babies and will, you know, spend every dime and second on them and yet aren't doing it for themselves. And so we came up with this idea of pet and parent longevity together. And, you know, we started by having the first Pet and Parent Longevity Summit, where we brought together all these different experts in different fields on both sides. And the beauty of it is you're hearing the same messages around different modalities of health and the same biological influences on the body. Sure, a species appropriate diet is going to look different for your dog than it is for you, but at its core, it's fundamentally the same on a principle and implementation level.
And isn't that just so beautiful? Because it really takes something so complicated and it brings it down into a simple understanding of the fact that, you know, everything is the same. We biological creatures, whatever we happen to be, we have some basic needs. And as long as those basic needs are being looked after and met, I mean, chances are we're going to be able to go through life in a fairly healthy way. But I mean, everything has become so complicated when looking at a physical body for a human or for pets. And then when you can tie it together and really have some core understandings of what to do to provide health for both, then you have a recipe for success. And then both you and your fur babies can coexist together in the best possible way. So I just love your story. And I just love the energy that the two of you bring together, because it's just so hopeful and light and amazing, like just that you just share. So what are some of the things that you offer for people to really dive into your work and take this to home?
So we've got a relatively diverse product suite, because we know that people learn at different speeds and they learn in different ways. You might be someone who learns auditorily rather than visually, or you like to study something, etc. So sometimes people are going to prefer a one-on-one connection as well, whereas a group thing may be suiting. So we've tried to create a space where everyone who comes in can find their niche, can find a bit that resonates for them and makes them feel at home and comfortable. And then there's as much hand holding or, hey, go for it yourself as people want. So we've got a number of ways of doing that, from a membership to a course to one-on-one consulting to group coaching programs to a whole lot of free things that we do videos regularly. So they're all up on the YouTube channel. So it's like you say, it's a way of just disseminating hope, because what I found with the practicing that I do is that nobody knows what the true actual lifespan of their pets really should be. And yet nobody wants their pets to go. So the message of hope of actually, this is the truth and this is how much control you have over it. And then this is how you would do that. And if you're investing in those things, you can apply that back to yourself. Is a message of hope that people are like, oh my gosh, my entire world's perspective has just changed. So in what we do together, we try to nurture people to have that kind of moment of awakening of perspective change, and then say, okay, which way do you want to go with that? We'll be here to support you. And relationally staying very connected with people as they take that journey has been a big, important part of what we do. Kaytee, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think we should expand on that a little bit. You know, the idea that most people don't actually know how long their pets are supposed to live. And I mean, even on the human side as well. Do you want to just kind of expand on that? Because the first time I heard those numbers, my jaw dropped to the floor.
Right. So we've become very comfortable with the thought that, okay, well, dogs will live until they're, I don't know, like maybe 14, or, you know, if you've got a really big dog, 9, if you're lucky, right? This is horrendous stuff. So even as early as back as the 70s, the average age was 18. So in a very short space of time, you know, biologically, there's been a dramatic shifting to where the average age for a dog now is 10 and a half. 10.5 is the average that they're getting to. Now, they should be getting well into their 20s. If you're a bigger dog, you should be getting your late teens, early 20s. And if you're a teeny tiny dog, then you can expect your late 20s. Now, if you're a cat, the oldest cat on record got to 38. 38. There's cats that have gone to 36. Getting into their low 20s is considered a little bit exceptional at the moment, but it never used to be. So their average is sitting around about 15. So we can expect to add another at least 10 years to that for these guys. So it's a big amount of time on the table.
That's a huge amount of time. And for, I mean, you know, I don't have pets personally, but my sister, she has no kids and she's always had German Shepherds. And I mean, they are the loves of her life. And, you know, like you get to that point and a decade goes by very quickly. And then you're waiting and you're waiting and you're seeing things happen. And I mean, I can only imagine, like, you know, and then people have to go through this time and again if they continue to get pets over and over again. And I mean, like it's the loss of your child essentially, as I'm seeing it with you know, people that have them. And I mean, it's devastating to have to go through that loss. So to be able to think that you can probably double the lifespan of your pet is phenomenal.
There's no time in their life that it's too late to start. So if you're starting when they're 15, you're probably not going to get I'm not saying you won't, but you're probably not going to get a doubling or a 10-year bonus. But if you start younger, then you've got so much more scope for that. And it is like the science is not uncertain about this. It's unequivocal. It's do these things, get these results. And we're still unraveling more of it, the story as we go. So it only gets better and better as we find out more.
Well, and the key is as well is it's not just about that length of life, it's about that quality of life as well. I mean, I witnessed this firsthand with my senior dog Peanut, you know, so many of these strategies that I've started integrating, you know, I didn't start till she was 14, but the amount of progress that I saw so quickly, you know, several years later, she's in a place where she's, you know, better than she was a few years ago, you know, almost like that aging in reverse, if you will. And on the human side, the average age of mortality in the US is 78. 78. And, you know, we know that there are people living well into their hundreds. Like, that's just not acceptable. And we also know that the last several decades of life are filled with disease and suffering and multiple medications and chronic diagnoses. You know, 4 out of the top 5 killers in humans are all largely preventable, and some of them are even reversible. And yet they're taking the lives of our loved ones. And so this idea that not only can we extend lifespan, but you can extend the healthy years. Most people, if they think, oh gosh, living to my 100, that sounds awful, because we associate age with decline, and yet it doesn't have to be this way. We know that people in the blue zones who are living into their hundreds are gardening, they're, you know, doing hobbies, they're dating, you know, at 101. Like, who doesn't want that kind of lifestyle if you're able to really have that vitality? Because health is really just this tool, right? It's this tool that we're using to live the life that we want to live. And so if we can focus on not just keeping you alive, which medication can absolutely do to some extent, but really focusing on fostering health from the inside out, then we really see this paradigm shift. And these principles that we can use for both humans and for our pets, Penny and I at Pet and Parent Longevity, we call them the 7 pillars of longevity. And these are essentially the lifestyle aspects that you do have control over, because we know that genetics don't determine outcomes. We used to think like, oh, well, diabetes runs in my family, like, I guess I'm just, but now we know that 70, 80, maybe even 90% or more of these health outcomes is really within our control. But most people don't know exactly how, and they don't know all of the facets with which they can really take advantage or take control of. You know, for most people, they think, okay, well, food influences it, but that's just one of these 7 pillars.
And I love the fact that when you remove the toxins from the body and you start adding in some of the good stuff, how fast things change. Like, even if, like, I always say when referring to fascia and talking about, you know, melting adhesions, and people will say, well, you know, well, I'm 80 and I've had decades of whatever, and I'm riddled with dysfunction. Like, can this even help me? And I always say, if you have an ice cube in the freezer from 30 years ago, or an ice cube in the freezer from yesterday, when you take them out of the freezer, they both melt. So I love that, because all we need to do is understand, like, and start with the basics, right? We don't have to get complicated and start with a whole bunch of things. Start with 1 or 2 things at a time. Take one bad thing away and add one positive thing. And before you know it, you're taking these beautiful steps, and then you gain so much from that. So can we dive into your 7 pillars and touch on each of them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the magnificent thing is that everything is connected, as you say. Like, we know biologically, mechanically, like, everything's connected, but these principles, they sit as separate principles because they need to be defined in such a way that it makes sense. Because the entire body of knowledge out there, the corpus of regenerative and functional medicine, is huge, right? We're not expecting anyone to go and access that. So we need to distill that down into something that's very manageable and a framework that, but each one of these things does have some ebb and flow across with the others. And when you start working on one, it has effect over here, and then you do that, and then you get a multiplication effect. And so the cascade of positivity, or the cascade of rejuvenation, it just enhances the more you do. So to your point, adding in one thing and taking out one thing that's bad is a perfect way to start. And then you just do that again next week. Once that's become a bit normal, then you just get exponential growth. So as Kaytee said, nutrition, I mean, that's how we fuel our bodies. It's almost a crazy thought to me that how people neglect thinking that what you put in won't have an effect on your outcomes. But nutrition, and in that we look at nutrition as food, as nourishment, but we're also looking at as nutrition as medicine as well, because of all of those amazing plant compounds all working synergistically together, having effect on that. So there's really 2 sides to the nutrition thing there. Then we have, we always have a different order. There's no set order, but that's one of the primary ins, right? You're putting something into your body to deliver. Then we've got a primary out, so that's detoxification. So we're going to be looking at modalities that are going to help draw out the things that have started to already get stored in our body, things that are causing that inflammation, that low level that obviously sets off the degen cascade. But at the same time as well, that's got its second side too. So that's then limiting exposure of what else is coming at us. So what's in our environment, externally in our home and where we live, and what's in our internal environment. So there's 2 sides to that. I'm going to flip over to Kaytee so that we can sort of bounce backwards and forwards on these.
So we also have movement. You know, we live in a society where we go from being in front of our computer, and then we get up and we walk to our car, and then we sit in our car, and then we drive somewhere, and then we get up and we walk inside and we sit down. We're not moving in the same way that we used to. And there's a few different components to this, wherein often people will do well at one, but not all of them. So we have movement, just moving in different modalities, different planes, and, you know, ranges of motion. And then we also have exercise, like getting your heart rate up, challenging your muscles, challenging your body in a specific way that's going to gain you, I mean, a variety of different health benefits, both physically and mentally. And then we also have the alignment piece, which is something that obviously your work, Deanna, is just so profound, not just for ourselves, but also for our pets, where the more we go through life, the more sort of out of alignment we tend to get. And so these 3 different modalities or aspects all sort of fall into this category of how we're moving and sort of existing physically. Then we have another pillar, which is sleep and hormones. And I think we live in a society where for some reason lack of sleep is sort of glorified. Like, oh yeah, I do, you know, the 4.5 hours, and like, oh wow, like you must be really dedicated. It's like, no, this is just not good for us. We know that during sleep, so many restorative processes happen. And again, this is where there's that overlap. You know, during sleep, we're also doing detoxification processes, you know, especially in our brain, for example, our liver. All of these things are really important and need to happen during rest.
I love that you said that, you know, a lack of sleep is almost glorified, because I find that there's so many things in life that are so anti-health that are glorified. And like, how did we get here? First of all, like, why do we have to, you know, oh yeah, I was up for 20 hours working my tail off every day for the last month, like I'm such a rock star. And it's like, well, not to your cells. Your cells, like, right now can't stand you.
And they're going to start rebelling really soon.
Right. They're congested and dirty and exhausted, and that's how they're going to look. Like, and that's that whole outer expression and how you move. So yeah, it's fascinating how we've taken, you know, the life that we should be living to provide the best health, the best longevity, the best outcome for all. And we've pushed all that aside for the sake of whatever it is, you know, whether it's convenience or it's, you know, building something. But I mean, building something for what, when you're beating down your body and you're trying to build something over here? Like there's so many divisions that just don't even make sense anymore in this world. So I love that you said that, because it's so in our face. And for people that don't understand this side of the equation and they believe that, you know, they're just going down a rabbit hole of destruction.
One of the other big dangers on that same theme is attaching your identity to some kind of physical debilitation. So people say, it's my condition, I suffer from, oh, it's just my migraine. I'm just inserting examples, but like you put an ownership and an identity thing on that, and that starts to make you believe that lie, that's something that's now integral in you, and therefore you can't escape it. And now you sort of almost have to advertise it to people, and it becomes, you know, a forefront of your life, rather than something that you say, because I really don't want any part of that. That's not a good thing at all. What can I do to get rid of that? And in the meantime, I'm just going to not claim it as some kind of weird gift, right? So that, I think, ties in as well. And obviously pets don't go around talking about that, but you know, I often hear that in human conversations.
Well, and I mean, that's why I love the distinction between disease and dis-ease. To me, disease feels very permanent. I mean, I used to say, before I really understood all this, that I have anxiety. Now I'm aware, if I feel anxious, I'm not giving my cells what they need, and they're giving me a signal. So like, just reframing that suddenly doesn't make it feel like I have anxiety that I have to live with for the rest of my life. No, if I have anxious cells right now, I can actually do something about it, and I can, you know, change whatever I'm not doing to support them, so that they don't have to give me those signals like, hey, mom or dad, like you're squishing me, or I'm dehydrated, or, you know, I haven't had any oxygen today, whatever it is, right? So yeah, anyway, continue, please.
I think that's a really empowering message, though. What you said is, that's a signal. I'm tuning into that. And now I can respond in an appropriate way. And I know that that will be effective. You know, so often in our healthcare system, it's just set up in a way that it's very much symptom management, as opposed to getting to the root cause of what's going on. Why are you feeling anxious? You know, if you have a 7-minute appointment, at least here in the US, we're not going to be able to do a whole lot to get to the root of that. We're not going to be able to dive into your nutrition and talk about the impact of sleep and talk about your environment and right, all of these past traumas, whatever it is, all these different potential impacts, because it's just very focused on, well, let's kind of dampen the fire as much as we can and unfortunately move on. And so, you know, without meaning to, we're sort of stripping people of their hope. And I know that was something that I experienced. You know, I struggled with debilitating GI symptoms for 15 years, and that impacted my mental health and my immune function. And I mean, it was just this terrible cascade. And it wasn't until someone finally said, you know, have you heard about nutrition? Have you thought about exercise? And that is just completely flipping the script, because you're moving from a place of disempowerment, of feeling hopeless, of taking on that identity, of being told you're going to have to live with this forever. Because the truth is, if you do nothing, if nothing changes, right? You will live with it forever if you don't do anything. But guess what? There's so much you can do. And by learning, by being taught about, you know, the how and the what, then you can really take control over that. And like you said before, these things don't have to be complicated. I mean, look, if you want to learn about, you know, the biology of, you know, neurotransmitters and the gut-brain axis and, you know, serotonin production, whatever, you totally can. If you want to nerd out like Penny and I do, you totally can. And you also don't have to, right? There's a lot of resources, a lot of people right now sharing how you can start making some small changes. And a lot of these things are free or low cost. Again, for example, let's take a water filter, right? There's a lot of different strategies you can do if you want to filter your water and decrease, you know, toxin exposure. Well, first of all, let's get you drinking more water. That's, for most people, free. And then we can talk about, what about a $15 Brita filter that's going to last you 3 months? If you want to go all the way up the chain and, you know, start doing reverse osmosis in structured water, you totally can. But it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be hard. Once you can distill down what areas you want to focus on, what areas, you know, your actions or your environment isn't fostering your health, and then you can prioritize. So one tool that we have, and we can absolutely share the link for this, is a free quiz wherein you can rank or score some of these different habits that you have for yourself and for your pet for each of the 7 pillars. And then you can map that out and you can see, okay, I have these 7 pillars. What areas are really fostering my health? When it comes to my nutrition, when it comes to my sleep, when it comes to my detoxification practices, what areas should I really focus on because I'm not doing so hot? And what areas am I really crushing it at? And I can give myself a pat on the back. And when you have that for yourself and you have that for your pet, then you know what areas you can focus on. And it takes this whole big overwhelm of like, oh my gosh, wellness and all the people on Instagram talking about all the things and should I do this or should I do that? You can say, okay, this is the one place I'm going to start. What's the first step?
I love that. I mean, people need that because things are so complicated. And I think that people don't necessarily recognize that your pet's health is really an extension of your own. Just like, you know, the cell in the body, like it's what we physically look at when we're looking at a human being, it's the accumulation of the health of all of those cells in the body. And same with your family, and then same with your pet. So like everything in the environment is going to be completely interconnected because you're breathing the same air, you're drinking the same water. You know, again, like if you're a human eating a really conscious organic diet, chances are you're going to be feeding your pet in a similar way. And conversely, if you're not, you're going to be feeding your pet whatever, right? So like it's so important to look at what we are doing as humans when it comes to that pet world. And when Dr. Siegel and I were creating our program, a lot of what we were sharing was about breathing, because if you're anxious with your breath, your pet is going to be anxious with their breath. They're going to be reading off of your energy, and that's how they're going to be existing in the world. And Kaytee, I loved how you said, like forever, like, you know, when somebody's living like, you know, their life forever, the quality of the life and the longevity comes down to what we're doing every single moment and how that impacts us. So forever is a scary concept if we have no idea how to support cell health, where it becomes a really exciting and hopeful conversation when we know that we have steps that we can take. And it's not like we have to go from 0 to 100 in a moment, but just knowing that we're on that right path and starting to see those changes step by step. That is so exciting. And to the body that has been stressed and struggling, that one little positive change can make the world of difference between being independent or being dependent on others to have to support you. So I think a lot of people, when they really are unwell, and they have been for a long time, they think it's just too overwhelming to even put any time and energy because they're exhausted. So to be able to break this down, I love that quiz, and to be able to break it down and give yourself that pat where you're doing well, and then say, okay, there's some areas that I need to put some time and attention, but like, let's not feel guilty about it or beat ourselves up anymore, because that's not going to help us thrive at all. We simply need to say, okay, here's the next step, and then just keep taking those steps. So I just love what you guys are doing.
There's so much transference too, as you're saying, with what our pets experience and what we experience, and vice versa, because they're part of your family, and they are masters at reading facial expression, body language, posture, tone of voice. They've also got the sensory abilities to read your emotions on your skin. They leave chemical fingerprints when you feel certain things, and your dogs and cats can smell each of those things, and they'll mimic and start to copy how you are to sort of set the culture of your tribe, of your family. So there isn't any way of escaping the fact that if you are not looking after yourself, if you are panicking, if you are stressed, if your heart rate's crazy, if you're feeling hopeless, that transfers onto your pets. And of course, then that's a burden that they're going to bear, because now they can't go and, you know, we might be able to go and talk to someone about that and lighten the load. So the other thing I like about the quiz that we designed is the pets can't sit there and say, I actually feel a bit neglected in the area of my microbiome. Can you know, so until we do something objective like a test or a quiz that runs through and starts to say, oh, actually pay attention to that bit there. Have you got that kind of bit sorted out, or is that missing? Our pets are sitting there and maybe not suffering in silence, but they're definitely feeling like they could be better. And in the wild, they absolutely do go out and solve those problems for themselves. They have a lot of self-awareness. They have a lot of strategies and innate knowledge to go and actually self-medicate from the wild, or to change behavioral patterns, or to adjust various different things, but under our roof and in a captive environment where they may not have that local mobility or the freedom, they can't go and solve their own problems. So they're just waiting for, like, please, mom and dad, could you just, I need, please do that. And so a quiz really helps to bring all that. Oh my gosh, I didn't know I could do that. Poor baby, I didn't mean to leave you waiting all this time. Now I can be proactive. And then obviously the transference works in the positive as well. So we know that our pets make us feel good. They lower our heart rate. They increase our longevity. They increase our ability to defend off allergies and boost our immune system and a whole bunch of things. But of course, then our voice, our heart rate, our emotions give them that security. And of course, the mental health, which is one of the pillars, mental health is just inextricable from the physical side of things. So if this is feeling disturbed and in turmoil or in some kind of stress that it feels inescapable, it has massive physiological, biological impact, but also the quality of life diminishes dramatically. So making sure our pets have that, and that was my background, really working with mental health of animals in the zoo, that comes now into this other pillar of mental health as part of our program.
Wow. You're sure bringing so much, like the combination of what the two of you are bringing together. It's just this absolute wealth of knowledge and wisdom. And I'm just so incredibly excited. Have we covered all the pillars yet? Or are there more?
Not quite. No, there's
yeah, there's more. So we talked about nutrition, movement, detoxification, sleep and hormones. Penny had just mentioned mental health. And again, just to reiterate, these are so connected. Your nutrition 100% affects your mental health. And your mental health is also going to affect your choices too, right? When you're not feeling awesome, it's pretty hard to make those choices that are a little bit more challenging or require a little bit more just
willpower or
yeah, exactly. So mental health. Then we also have microbiomes. And people sometimes tilt their head and say, did you say that wrong? It's just microbiome. But no, it's microbiomes because we have multiple different microbiomes. Most people hear microbiome and they think about the gut health. And yes, we absolutely have this beautiful community of bacteria and fungi and even viruses that exist within our gut to make up this community of health, which really impacts us as a whole. But we also have microbiomes on our skin. We also have a microbiome in our mouth. Also, now we're learning that we have one, around our spinal cord. So we have these different microbiomes that the health of that community is incredibly important for our own wellness. And by knowing a few simple strategies that you can use to foster these different communities, you can then gain those benefits, or conversely prevent some of the downfall that can happen when those are out of balance.
And certainly I was just going to say on that note with the microbiomes, we know, Kaytee mentioned before, that there are 5 main killers of humans, and there are 5 main killers in pets that have a little bit of overlap. There's some differences as well, but actually one of them is voluntary euthanasia because of insurmountable health challenges that the pet parents don't seem to be able to resolve, the vets don't resolve, and the animal is sitting there every day suffering. And the highest one of those is skin allergies, which is so related to both to the detox side of things and to the microbiome. The skin is really a mirror of what's going on the inside in terms of how clean it is, how healthy that is. And so if these dogs, thousands and millions of dogs, it's horrendous, are suffering chronic itching and bleeding and yeasty bits and hot, like it's just a real mess, to the point where people are saying it's better to actually put them down, right? And you can fix this. Like, I'm laughing because it's just astonishing to me that the problem has gotten so out of hand. But the good news is it is so treatable. It's with root cause solutions, not just throw some steroids on or some other kind of topical thing. But that's the power of how many lives could be saved by understanding some of these basic principles. And so I guess to wrap it up, then we've got natural environments. And this is one of my favorite ones, because when I first started on this journey to figure out what is it that prevents our wild animals out in nature from getting the chronic diseases that our captive animals suffer and die from, what is it that's keeping them safe? Because they're not fat, they don't have diabetes, they don't have cancer in most cases, they don't have Alzheimer's disease and dementia issues, and right, it just doesn't exist in that wild population. So what are they doing? Because it's obviously we're doing something, with the ones in captivity. And a big part of it is nutrition, and a big part of it is exposure to nature. They're supposed to live outside. They're supposed to have fresh air, to have this much sunshine, to be exposed to temperature gradients that are quite significant, to be grounded and have their paws touching the floor so that they can have those positive ions drawn out of their body and do that grounding process, so they can get multispectral light and have all of that infrared permeating into the body. There's a whole range of things, but then there's a whole zoopharmacognosy side of it, which is the animal self-medication. They're able to eat the clays and get the minerals out of the water and eat various leaves and barks and have a diversity of species that are coming in, bringing in amazing healing compounds that then boosts their immune system, which at the end of the day is the only thing that's going to keep any one of us healthy, is our own immune system. So they're optimizing that by interacting very closely and multidimensionally inside nature.
Wow, fascinating.
And it's
just so amazing.
And it's literally, again, this is just the beauty of it. It's literally everything Penny just said. And I'll replace every time she said them or pet. It's you, right? It's us. It's humans. It's exactly the same. We need to be outside. We need to breathe fresh air. We need to see the sunlight. We need these things, and we're so deprived of them. I mean, it's no surprise that, when you go on vacation and you go to the beach, or, when you say, okay, go to your happy place, and you're like, okay, I'm in the woods, or I'm on a beach somewhere, or I'm in there's a remote cabin. Like, we crave these things and we know it intuitively. And yet when it comes to our day-to-day, we're not actually integrating those strategies, but they're so easy. Like Penny said, something as simple as going outside, taking off your shoes, and putting your feet on the earth can lower inflammation. It can boost your immune system. It can improve your mental health. Take off those sunglasses and get sunlight directly into your eyes. That modulates your circadian rhythm, your sleep-wake cycle, your hormones, down to your hunger. I mean, it's just so profound, these little strategies. And so, Deanna, you mentioned before, like when someone's feeling ill or they're not feeling well, it can feel overwhelming and hard to do these things. But you can start with something as simple as, okay, you wake up in the morning. I know you go for your cup of coffee, get your cup of coffee. That doesn't have to change. We're not taking that away. Go outside, take it outside. Take off your shoes, take your dog with you, and go outside and look around. Don't look at your phone. And that simple 5 minutes of being outside, seeing the sunlight, touching the earth, do some diaphragmatic breathing, that can literally change your entire day. And when you start to feel better, when you start to feel that pickup, that slight rejuvenation, then everything else becomes easier, and you actually want to do more, and you can do more. And again, it all just builds and compounds. 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 1,000. And imagine what 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals, right? And so over time, this is affecting not just the day-to-day, but then it starts to really affect our physiology over time, so that if something happens in one day, you can't get that morning routine, it's okay, because it's built up. And it's not about perfection, because if it was as simple as, just do the thing every single day, we would all do it. And it's not realistic, right? That's why dieting sucks, right? Because it's not real. No one lives in a bubble. And so when we can acknowledge and let go of this perfection and just focus on, what am I doing most of the time? What's something I can do today? And we can change our relationship to our health, to our body image, to the relationship to the behaviors and the self-judgment. I mean, that alone makes a profound difference.
again, I love how you both present this concept of hope, non-judgment, simple action steps, and progress. That's what we need. You know, we just need to understand some basic things. Like I think all the time of you know, babies, for example. If like I'm super, super sensitive to chemicals. And so, you know, like if and I live in an apartment. So when I do my laundry, I'm downstairs in the basement, you know, using these communal washing machines. And sometimes I forget to look because I use vinegar and salt to wash my stuff. Sometimes I forget to look in the thing, and the person before me might have dumped a whole bunch of Downy in it. And I have thrown clothes out before. I've repeatedly washed them after they reek of this chemical because I am so hypersensitive to it. I've had to throw things out before because they've become ingrained with this chemical. And I think of a child or a baby who gets wrapped up in this downy blanket. And, you know, the parent or grandparent is thinking, oh, like, you know, it smells so good. It's so warm and soft. And I'm thinking, you know, this child can't communicate that I can't breathe. I'm itchy. My eyes are burning. And then same with the pet, you know, they can't communicate in that same way that we as, you know, adults can. And it's these little things that can add up to create such damage to a body. So to be understanding of the simple things in life that we need: fresh air, clean water, clean food, you know, nurture, love, support, hugs, all those wonderful things. And again, like it doesn't have to be hard. And I just love it again, because the two of you have come together and you've made something very complicated really simple. And so what else would you like to share with our community? Because I'm certain that you are touching the hearts of anybody listening and that they're going to want to be following through with what you're offering.
Let me jump in for 1 second and just elaborate on what you were explaining there with the baby, because that is so true with our pets. And one of the really neglected things that I found that, you know, almost no one thinks about it is actually, what's your pet bed made of? Because so many of them, in fact, I mean, it's so rare to find what I would call a clean bed that I would say that 95% of people would have their pets in a bed that is polluting them, because their face is right up here next to that, and they're breathing in these chemicals. And remember how sensitive their sense of smell is. So it's not just a case of unknowingly breathing this stuff in. Then they can tell, and it's horrible, and they don't like it, and yet they're told, go to your bed, and they are obedient, so they go to their bed, and then they are sitting there having all of this poison. And not only that, but they're naked, right? So anything that you've washed on that thing, or any Scotch guarding and some of those fabric things that's now going on. And what are they doing? They're going to groom. So because they're smaller, because they're closer to the ground, because they're naked, and because their metabolism is faster than ours, any hit on them, on their health, has a magnification effect above and beyond what it would have on us. They're still both as serious to things to address, but there's just less time and less tolerance, less room for maneuvering or wasting time or error with the pets, because they're in that position. And again, they're not there to say, hey, my pet blanket smells like, you know, product, I don't like it, can you get me a new one? Or can I just sleep on like clean towels or something, you know, it's like towels that have been out in the sun, you know, something, right? That's why they always go in the fresh laundry, right? After it's been hung out on the line and it comes in, because they can feel the sunlight on it and it's fresh. And anyhow, to your point, we talked at the start about longevity and lifespans, and how we can, in actually fact, claim back a lot of what was sort of left on the table through poor lifestyle and cultural things. But it's not a case of trying to hit a mark and go, oh, I'm going to live for this long, or I'm going to get my pet to this place here. Because the experienced life is what really matters, not how much. How much is important, because you don't want a little bit if there's a lot to be had. But the experienced, how free you are, how joyful you are, how each day is rewarding and a fun thing is the key thing. And so what I find with my animals, and I say my, because I mean, when I say that, I'm talking all the animals of the world kind of thing, because I feel like I umbrella over them and love them and care for them and want to do it. So they have this phenomenal freedom about them. And that's one of the things that I think inspires awe when we look at wild animals, is they are masters of their own destiny. They call the shots, they live their life with prowess, and they thrive. And they have this thing called Funktionslust, which is the joy of doing successfully the things that you are designed to do. And it manifests in them in play and in accomplishment and joy, and you see it. And for me, there's nothing better than seeing animal joy. And yet when I look in so many captive populations where we're loving them so much that we're giving them the same lifestyle that we give ourselves, thinking that we're blessing them, when in actual fact, the same lifestyle for most people is one that's leading to disease. So we're inadvertently, through the massive capacity of our heart for these creatures, giving them a recipe for disaster. So it's a case of, okay, let me love them just as much, but with an improved way of doing it that gives them that freedom of joy every day without any of that suffering. And that to me is the whole purpose of what drives my thing. It's the welfare of the experienced life of the animal. If they live longer with you, which they will when you do these things, the two are inextricably combined. You cannot separate health and longevity. If you've got one, you've got the other. But the longevity is not the target that we're going for. It's the joy and the freedom to every day be amazing.
Beautifully said.
So, Dan, I would love to welcome anyone listening to this in your community. I mean, you have cultivated such an incredible community that we have just been so blessed to be able to share this message with now. So thank you so much for giving us the time and space to just talk about this stuff, because if you can't tell, we could literally just talk about it all day. But we would love to welcome you, anyone listening, to take the quiz. Dan, I'm sure you can share the link, but it's bit.ly/pet-and-parent-quiz, and take the quiz, get that report, identify what areas you want to start focusing on for you, for your pet, and just take that first step. Just identify one little thing that you can do and celebrate that, because every little win is another building block in that process. We'd also love to welcome anyone to join. We have a workshop coming up on September 6th where we're going to be doing a deep dive more into the nutrition aspect. So we really like to spend time on each of the individual pillars. To, if you're feeling like, okay, well, that's great, I know I want to focus on my nutrition, but like, what is the first step? Take a breath, come join us, learn more about that. So that you can continue on that trajectory. And again, we're not coming at it from a perspective of weight loss or, dieting, but it's really a perspective of understanding your body, your pet's body, and not just the what to eat, but even the when and the how. All of these things really matter when it comes to nourishing our bodies.
Wow. Thank you both so much. Such great information. We will absolutely post all of the links below. I encourage all of you to take part in this and to see where you can pat yourself on the back and you can start to take those wonderful steps forward. And Kaytee and Penny, you have been just so great to listen to. And again, your energy is just infectious. So I just want to keep working with the two of you, and I'm sure we will. We'll have lots of wonderful things that we do together. And to the community, thank you all so much for taking the time to listen. This is valuable information. Take action. Dive in, and let's just all live the healthiest life that we can for as long as we can. And also we can see our pets thriving along the way. Thank you all for joining, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.